بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. I praise Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. I ask Allah to send countless blessings and salutations on Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, his pure family and his honorable companions, and all those who follow them in excellence until the day of judgment. And I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us all the sincere intentions. And we should intend by what we're going to do today to draw closer to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala in status, to earn the reward from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, to earn the acceptance and pleasure of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, and to seek Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Give me 1 second, inshallah. I keep forgetting it's getting hotter and hotter every day. Subhanallah. Allah, Ya Rab. And I remind myself and I remind you of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. That all of the deeds, they are according to one's intention. And every person will have that which he intended. So let us all intend good. And among the things we should intend, so that we all share in the reward of our session, and it's an easy way to do it, that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that the one who indicates to good has the same reward, an equal reward, as the one who does it. So that we all share in the reward, let us all make an honorable intention to spread beneficial knowledge for the sake of Allah, to intend to guide and benefit others, and we can all press the share button so that those who follow us will also benefit, and we get the reward of spreading knowledge and teaching and calling people to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So if we all share the video, this way we will all be included in this, and keep the intention, like Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said to Sayyidina Ali, that if Allah guides by you one person, it is better for you than the red camel. Is the voice clear? I hope the voice is clear. Let me check. Allah. So it will be better for you then, if Allah guides by you one person, it will be better for you than the red camel. And the red camel was a precious property of the Arab. So you never know. You'll share, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may give the message to someone and they would be guided by your hands and you would get that reward. Do not be one who blocks yourself from goodness. You know, one time, one of my teachers, he came to visit me after about almost 25 years later from the time I was studying with him. And he came to visit me and he traveled with us, alhamdulillah. And he went to several sessions. At that time, we used to do a lot of traveling and teaching, going at da'wah. And he said something. He said, wow, I remember when you were sitting in the session learning with me. And now look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing on your hands. I am very happy because we were able to spread what he taught us. And we continue to this day. For every lesson we do, Sayyidi Sheikh, he gets the reward of that. For every lesson, for every person who learns al-aqidatu sahiha, who learns the rules of al-fiqh, who learns about al-tasawwuf, who learns about al-hadith, all of these things, he gets the reward for every harf, every letter that is mentioned, he's a sharer in that reward. So make yourself like that. So even if you're not doing something, you get that reward. It's important to consider this. So inshallah ta'ala, I wanted to go back, and I need my glasses, to some statements because there are some things that I needed to mention from yesterday that I didn't finish. And I want to expand on those things, inshallah ta'ala. So there were those two statements, and we're still in the book, Kitab Asma wa Sifat lil Imam al-Bayhaqi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. We mentioned the statement of Sufyan ibn Uyayna radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, that Imam al-Bayhaqi, he mentioned, and I will reiterate that statement. And Sufyan ibn Uyayna, I told you he was from the followers of the followers. He was the sheikh of the scholars in Mecca. He was from the Salaf. And he mentioned that everything Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala described himself with it in his book, its recitation is its explanation. And it is not permissible for anyone to explain it in Arabic or in Persian, right? So we mentioned the statement of Sufyan ibn Uyayna that Imam al-Bayhaqi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu mentioned in his book Al-Asma wa Sifat. And there is another narration that we mentioned of Sufyan ibn Uyayna, the other narration that Al-Bayhaqi mentioned, with another chain of narration that Sufyan ibn Uyayna said, everything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described himself with it in his book, with it in his book, its explanation is his recitation, and to remain silent about it. So here we have from one of the Salaf and a great Imam of the Salaf, Sufyan ibn Uyayna, where he's talking about whenever we're talking about a description or a characteristic that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described himself with it in the Quran, its explanation, how do we explain it, is by the mere recitation of it and stopping there, remaining silent about it, not explaining it, not in Arabic and not in Persian. And since the language that we're speaking is English, of course, we shouldn't be explaining it in English. If Sufyan ibn Uyayna, who was from the Salaf, and we're talking about following the Salaf, then of course, if it's not to be explained in Arabic, which is the language of revelation, Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala revealed the Quran in Arabic. The Prophet salawatullahi wa salam alayhi wa ala alih, he spoke in Arabic, right? So if Sufyan ibn Uyayna, who was among the Imams of the Salaf in his time, is saying don't explain it in even Arabic, accept it as it has come and remain silent, is the meaning there. So I want us to get into that. Whenever we talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attributes, whatever Allah described himself within the Quran, let us get in the habit of leaving it in the Arabic language. That's number one. And there is a base. You're not obligated to translate what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described himself with in the Quran. So if Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala in the Quran mentioned a verse and then mentioned an attribute about himself in that verse, leave it there. Leave it there. Don't translate it. Don't give no further explanation. Confirm what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala confirmed to himself and leave it. While at the same time declare Allah transcendent above any resemblance to created things. And that is in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah 42, verse 11. I should put it. Surah 42, verse 11, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. At the end of the ayah, at the end of the verse. If you combine these two things, the recitation of the verse, its confirmation as an attribute of Allah, while at the same time declaring Allah divinely transcendent above any resemblance to the creation. This is very simple. It's not complicated. If you do that, you remain safe. Is this clear? I'm giving you the easiest way. I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not make it an obligation on anyone to know the reality of his self, his essence. In fact, searching for his essence and his reality, as Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu said, it's an issue of kufrun wa ishraq. It is disbelief and associating partners to Allah. None of us have the ability to know the reality of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, and you're not obligated to seek after his reality. Rather, you're prohibited from seeking after his reality. Because there is an issue that we need to understand here, and I'm trying to help as easy as possible without going into details, right? Because if you got the base, then I can go into details and you won't get confused. Or you can listen to someone who has a deviant belief, and you won't get confused about their claims because you already have a safe space, a safe foundation. You confirm what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said for himself. You have the statement from Sufyan ibn Uyayna, who said that the explanation is its recitation and to remain silent. So for you, if you have no means to learn Arabic, learn enough Arabic so that you can recite the Quran and stop when you talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you don't have to keep translating the attributes of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Leave them in Arabic. Why is that important? Because once you translate, you're taking it from revelation and bringing it to the speech of human beings. Do you follow? You're bringing it to the speech of human beings. And once you bring it to the speech of human beings, now you must convey the meaning of what Allah said, because you're no longer talking about what Allah said. Is this clear? And this is not something that should be intimidating. Rather, safety is leaving what Allah revealed as Allah revealed it. And if you're going to explain it, you're only going to convey the meaning of what you understood from what Allah said. This is easy. That's with all of the Quran and the statements of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It doesn't mean if you don't know Arabic, you can't have a sound belief. That's not what it entails. The sound belief is not to ascribe to Allah that which is not befitting to him. That's the sound belief. All right. With that said, so if you have this point, you have the foundation from the sound belief. Now, there is this issue that was raised yesterday that I want to give you one of the early Muslims, his name, and he was right after the time of the Salaf. His name is Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Imam Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi. Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi, he was a great Hafiz, scholar of Hadith, who lived in the 4th century Hijrah. He wrote the most famous, among the most famous commentaries on the Sunnah of Abu Dawud, right? And Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi, Imam al-Bayhaqi quotes him often in his book Al-Asma wa Sifat. So he was before al-Bayhaqi. Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi, I think he died around 384, 382, somewhere around there after Hijrah. Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he talked about negating this concept of al-kayfiyya, about Allah. I just slowly trying to give you these terms. And make dua that Allah put more blessing in my time so that I can make, I've been trying to do it, but my time just doesn't always work. Where I put in these things in like a PowerPoint so you can see it. Make dua for me that Allah gives me more barakah in my time. Sometimes it's difficult. So Imam Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi, who was before al-Bayhaqi, so that means his narrations is closer to the Salaf, right? And his commentary, everyone who studies the Sunnah of Abu Dawud, and even he has a commentary on Al-Bukhari and other books, when they want to study that book, they usually refer to the explanation of Al-Imam Abu Sulaiman Al-Khattabi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So Al-Bayhaqi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu mentions Abu Sulaiman Al-Khattabi in relating, rahimahullah, in relation to negating Al-Kayfiyya. And I want to go to these statements of Abu Sulaiman Al-Khattabi, and there are two places in Al-Asma wa Sifat that I wanted to share with you. On page 524, and they told me to do this, but alhamdulillah. On page 524 here, this is the statement. And I'm going to take pictures of this one day, right here. You see their name there? Abu Sulaiman Al-Khattabi, right there. Right? Abu Sulaiman Al-Khattabi, rahimahullah. He mentions Al-Bayhaqi, after talking about a hadith that relates to Al-Arsh. In this section, he's talking about the verse, وَهُوَ الْقَاهِرُ فَوْقَ عِبَادِهِ, that Allah is Al-Qahir فَوْقَ عِبَادِهِ. He is the one who subjugated his servants. And he mentioned some ahadith, and at the end of it, when he mentions these hadith in relation to Al-Arsh and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being fawq al-arsh in the hadith, right? He says, Abu Sulaiman Al-Khattabi, he said that this speech, هذا الكلام إذا أجري على ظاهره كان فيه نوع من الكيفية. He said, whenever you use these words, the speech that's mentioned in the hadith about Allah being above the throne, if you took it literally, he said this speech, if you understand it literally, if you take it literally, على ظاهره كان فيه نوع من الكيفية. If you did that, it has a type of giving Allah a howness to it. It has a type of howness to it. If you take it literally, saying Allah is above the throne, he said that has naw'un min al-kayfiyya, a type of howness, a type of manner of being, modality. And then look what he says, wal kayfiyatu anillahi ta'ala wa an sifatihi manfiyya. He said, and al-kayfiyya, howness about Allah and his attributes are negated. Subhanallah. This is Imam Abu Sulaiman Al-Khattabi, and I put it there. Maybe I should move this camera. There you go. There, here, right there. And there you see it. وَالْكَفِيَّةِ عَنِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى وَأَنْ صِفَاتِهِ مَنْفِيَّةِ. Right? There is the statement, right there, highlighted. You cannot say about Allah, as Abu Sulaiman Al-Khattabi, that there is a how for Allah. He said, Al-Kayfiyya Anillahi Ta'ala wa an sifatihi manfiyya. That howness, using the word kayf, how, for Allah is negated for Allah and his attributes. That's one state. This is on page 524. In another statement, Imam Al-Khattabi again, Al-Bayhaqi quotes it. And I want to show you something. A few, I don't know, maybe it's been about a couple weeks now, someone mentioned that Allah has a form and they use this hadith. And remember when I told you that person, he mentioned, and I read it to you, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, wal-iyadu billah, he said that the God of the Muslims in Islam has the form of a man. Wal-a'udhu billahi min ash-shaytanir rajim. Waqas, relax. This guy, relax. I told you, take your time. You can post, but don't distract the people. I got you. Don't worry, just relax. I understand what you're trying to do. I know the feeling. Trust me, I've done it for decades. I know what you're doing. Just relax. I got it. Tell you. So he mentioned that Allah had, wal-iyadu billah, may Allah protect us from such, a form, right? So Imam al-Bayhaqi mentions those hadith where the word surah is mentioned, right? Namely about Adam, right? And Al-Khattabi mentions the hadith related about that, and then Imam al-Bayhaqi quotes him where Al-Khattabi says, وَأَمَّا ذِكْرُ صُورَةِ فِي هَذِهِ الْقِصَّةِ, as for mentioning the surah or form in this story, look what Al-Khattabi says. He said, فَإِنَّ الَّذِي يَجِبُ عَلَيْنَا وَعَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ أَن نَعْلَمَ أن ربنا ليس بذي صورة ولا هيئة، فإن الصورة تقتضي الكيفية وهي عن الله وعن صفاته منفية. So he says, as for the form that is mentioned in this story, and he mentioned the hadith before this, he said, what is obligatory upon us and upon every Muslim is that we know that our Lord does not have a form or a shape, because the form necessitates a howness, and howness is negated about Allah and his attributes. I just keep showing you. There it is, right there. See it? Gotcha. There you go. Right here. And I know it's not focusing well, but you can see the page number, and I showed you the book, right? And there he says, فَإِنَّ الصُّورَةَ my glasses, I can't see. Excuse me. Right? إن الصورة تقتضي الكيفية وهي عن الله وعن صفاته منفية. Right? Here. Because the form necessitates a howness, and howness is negated from Allah and his attributes. Right there. So I'm mentioning these statements from Al-Khattabi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu because he talks about this term al-kayfiyya. And Imam al-Ash'ari radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who came before Imam al-Khattabi, Imam Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari, he mentioned in his book Al-Ibana, right? In his book Al-Ibana, he mentioned about Allah's attributes. He said, وَأَنَّ لَهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَجْهًا بِلَا كَيْفٍ كَمَا قَالَ وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. He said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is attributed with a wajh, bila kayf, without a how. So when somebody says without a how, Imam al-Khattabi, who came right after Imam al-Ash'ari, he only died 60 years after Imam al-Ash'ari. So the teachers of al-Khattabi were among those who related from Imam al-Ash'ari and the students of Imam al-Ash'ari, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So very close. And he explained that al-kayfiyya about Allah and his attributes is negated. So when Imam al-Ash'ari says bila kayf, it is negating the kayfiyya. Do y'all follow that? And the evidence from that is the statement that al-Bayhaqi mentioned about Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And why am I mentioning these names? Because when al-Bayhaqi relates from Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi, he's using his statement as an evidence, as a proof. So that means he's confirming the statement of Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. It's a confirmation. He's not negating, he's confirming his statement by narrating it as an explanation of the hadith. Which means they were what? All on the same belief. So how they understood the statement of Imam al-Ash'ari and others among the Salaf who explained the attributes of Allah in Arabic and said bila kayf, right? Bila kayf. What they understood was the negation, nafyul kayfiyya, not ithbatul kayfiyya, right? Would mean not confirming a kayfiyya. Two important points. All right, now I want to make sure you understand these points before I move on, because it's going to get a little not complicated, but I want to make sure you understand. So the point here is we took this statement, I'm just showing you, we took this statement from the base that we do confirm, which was the position of the Salaf, as mentioned by Sufyan ibn Uyayna. Whatever Allah described himself within the Quran, we confirm it, we accept it as it has come in the Quran or in the Sunnah, right? We don't explain it in Arabic or any other language. We remain silent while negating any resemblance of Allah to his creation. Is this clear? That's a question. Just what I mentioned, is it clear? I'll wait a second to see if anyone has a question just about what I just mentioned. We affirm everything that was related from Allah, when he described himself in the Quran and the Hadith. We don't explain it in Arabic or in English or in Persian or any other language, while negating that Allah resembles while confirming that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is dissimilar to all of his creation. This is clear, alhamdulillah. All right. Since we understand that, that also entails, as was mentioned by al-Bayhaqi, who rahimahullah, and I want you to pay attention. Who is al-Bayhaqi? Al-Bayhaqi is a hafiz of hadith. He is a faqih. The scholars said about al-Bayhaqi that he could have had his own madhab and he would have been a mujtahid. This is the level of al-Bayhaqi. So we're not talking about anybody. We're not talking about al-Albani or Ibn Abdul Wahab or Bin Baz or Ibn Uthaymeen or Muqbil or any of them. We're talking about al-Bayhaqi. None of them, if you put all of them together, they won't reach the rank of al-Bayhaqi. No, and I'm being not sarcastic, I'm being honest. If you put all of those that I mentioned together, they won't reach the rank of al-Bayhaqi together. That shows you his level. If you put al-Albani, Muqbil, Ibn Uthaymeen, Bin Baz, Fawzan, all of those whom they refer, put them all together, combine their knowledge, they won't reach the rank of al-Bayhaqi. So I want you to just know levels, seriously, because we use this term scholar too loosely. They won't reach the level of al-Bayhaqi if you put them all together. He was a hafiz of hadith, and he reached the level in al-fiqh to the level of a mujtahid. I want you really to understand, I'm not exaggerating. You really don't realize when we mention these names, it's not no hum rijal wa nahnu rijal. They're men and we're men. As our teachers used to say, hum rijal wa nahnu dhukur. They are men and we are males. Big difference. Big difference. There's no comparison between the likes of al-Bayhaqi and Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi and Sufyan ibn Uyayna to anyone in this time. I want you to understand that. Because there's a game, the scholars said, these are not scholars. If these people were in the session of al-Bayhaqi, they will be pouring the coffee and the tea. They wouldn't be no scholar. We just got to keep it real. I mean, a little bit, and I'm not condemning them. That applies to mostly everybody in our time. It's not like I'm just talking about them. No. But since these people act like they are the proofs and evidence and the scale by which we weigh truth and falsehood, and compared to those great scholars. So and I'm going to share some more about al-Bayhaqi and others. Al-Bayhaqi, he was the student of Al-Hakim, Abu Abdullah Al-Hakim. Al-Hakim was the one who wrote the book Al-Mustadrak ala Sahihain, and his book has reached us today. Al-Hakim, he wrote the book that explained hadith or mentioned hadith that were on the conditions of Bukhari and Muslim that were not mentioned in their books. So his book is another reference when we want to find authentic hadiths on the conditions of Bukhari and Muslim. That level, to do that lets you know the level of his knowledge. So this is serious. I mean, we got to take the wool off our eyes. And this is a level of humbleness. We don't got to be arrogant. Truth is truth. That's it. I'm mentioning that because one of the things, by blocking you out from the real scholars and giving you scholars' names of these people, and you don't know the ranks of ulama, the ranks of scholars, the ranks of people of hadith, then you can get food. But when we say, no, let's not talk about nobody else. This is what al-Bayhaqi said. This is what al-Bayhaqi, who had that rank, al-Dhahabi mentioned about him. Al-Dhahabi mentioned that he could have had his own school and been a mujtahid because of his vast knowledge. So al-Dhahabi was the student of Ibn Taymiyyah. So even al-Dhahabi, who actually ended up writing against his sheikh and giving him some advice, nevertheless, that's a whole nother story. But al-Dhahabi mentioned al-Bayhaqi with this rank, and that's why I'm emphasizing it, because who we're talking about. We're not talking about anybody. We're talking about somebody who had a high rank, a very high rank in Islamic knowledge. To everyone after him everyone after him relied on his books. If you want to study real knowledge of the rules of the religion and the evidence for fiqh rulings, you're going to have recourse to the books of al-Bayhaqi. As-Sunan al-Kubra, As-Sunan al-Sugra, Ma'arifat al-Sunan wal-Athar, no doubt about it. Al-Bayhaqi, he wrote books that will blow your mind. This is his rank. And he's quoting Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi. And if you want to talk about the Sunan of Abu Dawood, which is one of the 6 main books, you're going to refer to the book of Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, who reached the level of Hafiz. He was at that level. So everybody we're talking about are masters of the science of hadith, whose knowledge has stayed with the ummah for over 1,000 years. You heard that? Over 1,000 years. all of the ummah of Sayyiduna Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam have referred to these great scholars and their works. And this is what they said. And I'm mentioning to you their statements. And I showed them to you with their chains of narrations. So Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi, he said, al-kayfiyya is negated about Allah and his attributes. Al-Bayhaqi confirmed that and related that in those hadith that these people use to try to give Allah a form, they said explicitly that it is impossible, not befitting to describe Allah with those attributes. This is, I ask you, if I'm in the position, and all of us are in this position, we're just weighing positions. We're narrating. You're bringing us evidence, and they're bringing us an evidence. We're just putting them to the side. Our teachers used to say this to us: things are made clear by their opposite. Things are made clear by their opposite. What I want to do, and this is one of my primary missions first, we're going to build. Trust me, is a lot more where this come from. I'm trying to just establish a foundation for you. That's it, first. And so all the ones who's rushing, I don't do microwave Islam. I don't do it. So I told you that. If you want to get some slogans from me, I don't do microwave Islam. We're going to take our time. We're going to unravel this stuff, and it'll be clear as the sun on a noonday. And here, as I'm making this point, we got two positions. You got a position of people saying that we must take these attributes literally. And those are those people saying that. And I look at their rank. None of them have the rank of Hafiz, not a one. Not Al-Albani, not Muqbil, not Bin Baz, not Ibn Uthaymeen, not Fawzan, not Rabi al-Madkhali. None of them are at the rank of Hafiz. None of them, not a one. They celebrate one of them who may have memorized Al-Bukhari. You notice I said may have memorized Al-Bukhari, and they celebrate that. When our scholars used to say about Al-Bukhari, we memorize Al-Bukhari. Who's we? Meaning the Hufad of Hadith. We memorize Al-Bukhari, Sahih Al-Bukhari, like one of you memorizes Al-Fatiha. We, the Hufad, that's what our teachers used to say, we memorize Sahih Al-Bukhari like one of you memorize Al-Fatiha. And none of them reach the level of Hafiz. Let me put this. The scholars who mention the amount of knowledge, at minimum, that a Hafiz must have, Al-Hafiz, I'll put it, in Hadith. Needs at least 100,000 with their chains. Excuse me. So look at that. Al-Hafiz in Hadith. So when we say someone's a Hafiz, you know, say Hafiz in Quran, they memorize all the Quran. The minimum number that the scholars mention in the books of the sciences of Hadith, they said the minimum amount of a Hafiz in Hadith is 100,000 Hadith with their chains of narration. Not one of them have reached that rank. And they don't claim it. So for someone, and I got the evidence from their words, none of them reached that rank. We're really We ain't even start yet. None of them reached that rank. Al-Hafidh in hadith is 100,000 hadith at minimum with their chains of narration. Now, Bin Baz, no. Ibn Uthaymeen, no. Al-Albani, no. Rabi al-Madkhali, no. Muqbil, no. Not a one reached that level. Put them all together, they don't reach the level of Hafidh. But they're challenging. Al-Bayhaqi, yes, he reached that level. Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi, yes, he reached that level. Sufyan ibn Uyayna, yes, he reached that level. As they say, bring your proofs. You show me where any of them reached their level, and don't lie, because I have their books. One of the things, one of my teachers, when he said it to me, I was disappointed, but today I'm so grateful for his pushing me. He told me, one of my teachers, and I was very eager to study the books because he was a close student of Sheikh Abdullah al-Ghumari, rahimahullah, the great Hafidh in our time. I asked him, I said, Sayyidi, I want to just study the books of Sheikh Abdullah al-Ghumari. He told me, I'm not going to teach you, or he gave me some, but I'm not going to teach you until you read the books of Al-Albani first. I was like, huh? I'm like, what? That's what I was saying to myself. But I wanted this so bad, so I started to read the books of Al-Albani. And he told me which books to read, right? And go through them. And he had me doing some other work in those books, right? So what was good about that? When I finally read through most of those books and did the research work he wanted me to do, when I read the books of our scholars, I saw the difference from darkness and light. I wasn't blind following nobody. I could actually see it myself. I knew the mistakes that Al-Albani had made myself. I read them. I saw them. Therefore, it wasn't just the sheikh telling me something. I actually researched it myself. And then when I read the books of Sheikh Abdullah al-Ghumari, I was able to see clearly when he said Al-Albani was misguided and misguiding. I was able to see it clearly for myself. Not only I can say the sheikh said, no, the sheikh said it, and here's the evidence. Boop, bop, boop, bop, boop, bop, as I'm doing right here. So none of them reached the level of Hafidh, right? I'm just talking about Hadith, because these are Ahlul Hadith. Remember, we're the people of Hadith. You are saying one thing, that we must take these things literally, and they must be understood literally, and this is your rank. And the Hufadh of Hadith, those scholars of Hadith who reached the highest rank, said you should not take them literally, because literally taking them literally would entail al-kayfiyya, and kayfiyya is negated about Allah and his attributes. That is, and here's the books written by a Hafidh. Tayyib, let me go one step further. I tell you, just take your time. Please write all these names down. Don't just listen to me. I'm showing you the books. I'm showing you the proof. I don't count. Take it that Imam Amin don't know how to read, that Imam Amin is an illiterate and a stupid, right? Take it like that. I'm not going to be offended, right? But I want you to look at the evidences that are mentioned here. And I got more. Don't worry. This is just beginning. We like starting the cooking. We just cutting up the vegetables. We ain't even get started yet. Trust me. But, so I'm giving you the evidence. You got to say, He showed me the books. He showed me the scholars. He showed me the statements. He didn't just say, listen to me. Now he showed it to me, right? Because what has happened to us is people hid this stuff from us. They gave us all these colorful books and nice fancy prints with just full of nonsense and said, this is your deen. And they've been doing that for us for decades. It's time now to stop. Is enough of us who know Arabic, is enough of us who studied, is enough of us who can say, you know what, we ain't doing that no more. No more blind following. The ones who always say blind following are the worst blind followers on the face of the earth. We don't blind follow, taqleed, which doesn't mean blind following, but anyway, blind following, no one blind followers more than them. No one. They're so blind that the proof will be right in their face and they'll still argue with it. That's blind following. Right in your face. You can't deny it. And you still will be arrogant, obstinate, and say, I don't care. They were all misguided. And guess what? That's the end point I want you to say. That what they claim is that all the previous great scholars who fought in hadith were all misguided and we're right. That's what their claim is. That's the claim. And once you get that claim, it's up to you to decide if that is a truth or falsehood. Now, let me finish. Since you're comparing these people who are not Hufaz to the Hufaz of Hadith, and this is what the Hufaz of Hadith said, now you have a new term. You know what a Hafiz is in Hadith. You know the rank of a Hafiz. And most of them were way above that. You're comparing someone who is not a Hafiz to a Hafiz. And you're telling me this person is not at this level, and this one is at this rank, and this one doesn't understand Allah's attributes, and this one does. I'll leave it to you to make that decision. I'll leave it to you to make that decision. And let me give you another point. One of the great Hufaz of Hadith, his name was Imam As-Suyuti, Al-Hafiz. He died 9/11 after Hijrah. I'm just sharing some stuff. Al-Hafiz As-Suyuti, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he has a book called Al-Alfiyah, meaning it's a poem in the science of Hadith. Alfiyah to Suyuti, right? In that poem, he said that if you want to know if a hadith is sahih or da'if, right? Hasan, sahih, da'if. You want to grade a hadith, you take that from a hafiz, from someone who is a hafiz, or a book that a hafiz wrote mentioning that. There's a line of poetry in the Alfiyah of Suyuti. So in order to know the weight of hadith, the one who's supposed to do that is supposed to be a hafiz, or you're supposed to relate what the Hufaz said. Which, this is what the Hufaz said. Where these people are following a person who is not a hafiz. Explain. When the scholars of hadith, the experts, the Hufaz, they said that that's who you're supposed to refer to. That's who you're supposed to rely on. When all of them, with no exception among them, handful of people who deviated from the majority. That always exists, right? Negated al-kayfiyya from Allah. Negated the how. I just showed you. So I want to stop here. I just gave you the statement of al-Bayhaqi. I told you where it is. I told you where he relates from Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi. And I gave you the rule from the Salaf, one of the great scholars of the Salaf, about how you relate to the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. So I want a lesson from this. Number one, these are the points I want you to take from this lesson. Number one, whenever we talk about the attributes of Allah, stop translating them into English. Learn what Allah ascribed to himself in the Arabic language and leave it there. While at the same time, declare Allah transcendent, clear of resembling the creation. That's how you solve that issue. Knowing that it's not an obligation about you to know the reality of Allah, because you can't know that. That's one. Number two, negate from Allah al-kayfiyya, any type of howness that is negated about Allah. Who said that? The great Hafiz Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi, right? As related by the great Hafiz al-Bayhaqi in his book Asma wa Sifat, right? And the last point is distinguish between the expert and the non-expert. In hadith, the expert is the hafiz. The non-expert is the one who didn't reach that level. And as Suyuti said, when we're weighing authentic statements and weak statements, that is the job of al-hafiz. So if the hufaz understood these things, why should we be paying attention to people who didn't reach that rank? When we have clearly the hufaz of this nation, and I'm going to show you many of them over the time, they said exactly opposite of what you said. Tomorrow, and here's a problem I'm going to present to you, and that's why you need vast reading. One time, Sheikh Samir, he said to us when we studied with him, and it's all it's a habit, Sheikh Samir said, do not have just one copy of a book, meaning one edition. Ensure whenever we're reading that you got several editions of the same book. So this book, Al-Asma wa Sifat, that's one edition, right? Because I want to show you something tomorrow. That's one edition, Al-Asma wa Sifat, and this was by Risala Publishing Company. And this was the one I want to show you. And it makes it easy why, for those who are just learning Arabic, this edition, why I picked this edition, because this edition also has vowels. So it would help the one who struggles to read Arabic. So the vowels are there. No one can trick you. The vowels are there, right? So this one edition, right? This is another edition with the Taqiq of Sheikh Muhammad Zahid al-Kawthari, who was a great scholar in Egypt. And this is the same book, but by another company. So it's another edition. And you'll be able to compare to see if fabrication was done. So this is in one another copy, right? This is another copy, right? Darul Kitab al-Arabi. This is Darul Kutub al-Ilmiya. Some of my close companions, Darul Kutub al-Ilmiya. Alhamdulillah, but good. It's nice to compare. And this is Darul Kitab al-Arabi, the same book. So we got different editions of the book, so we can compare to make sure that we're reading what we're reading. So you can't say, oh, it's a mistake. Okay, well, what about this one? What about this one? There's a benefit in it. I said we're going to slow cook this, right? And I'm going to show you, here's a problem. Those Wahhabi people, they're untrustworthy. What do? They put their fabricated ideas in the books, and they put their stuff in the books, which sometimes is good. You know why it's good? Because if they're doing the editing of the book and they're putting their ideas, they show you how they contradict the author, which will let you know in one place, this is what the author said and this is their belief. They are so arrogant that these dwarfs, they're going to correct the giants. These amateurs, and that's a high rank for them, are going to correct the experts. These amateurs, and I'm giving them status by saying that, are going to correct the experts and tell us the experts were misguided and these amateurs are on the right path. That's what they want us to buy. And if you buy that, I got a bridge to sell you, as they say. If you buy that, I got a bridge to sell you, right? But this is work. That's why I tell you, brothers, stop rushing. Stop trying to be fast. We don't want microwave Islam. We want to take it slow. We want to understand. We want to understand, and we want to make sure we got it right. We don't want no mistakes. We don't want to just brush through. That's why some of you, when you're discussing, you get nervous because you're rushing. Take your time. Take your time. It's fine. If you save one person from that misguidance, you've done a great job. But if you're trained well and you understand well, you'll save a lot of people. Right? All right, with that, I'll pause there because tomorrow I'm going back into this concept of al-kayfiyya and I'm going to explain it to you and to show you the difference between Ahlus Sunnah and those people, al-Wahhabiyya and Salafiyya. Do you see the difference? Once you see the difference, I don't want to guide your mind anywhere. I want to give you the facts. I want to put them on the table for you. And I want you to use your intellect to decide what is right and wrong. Right? That's what you need to do. Stop blind following. Don't blind follow them. Don't blind follow me. Don't blind follow nobody. Use your intellect. Allah gave it to you for a reason, not for you to put it in prison. Take your time. Everyone starts off not knowing. And here's my point. Sometimes they say, well, it ain't about us. We're just trying to be guided. That's it. You telling me something, I'm listening. You telling me something, I'm listening to you. I'm examining what you're saying, and I'm comparing it to the facts, and it ain't adding up. It doesn't add up. And I'm going to give you more and more and more and more. Trust me, I could give you enough proofs to all of us die every single day, non-stop. That's how much proof is available. Every single day, I could give you a different proof until we die, even if we lived 100 years. That's how confident I am about it. Even if we lived 100 years, I could give you a proof that negates what these people are saying about Allah every single day, a different proof from a different scholar in a different time, in a different place, in a different age for the past 1,500 years. This is easy. Now, you can alter the facts if you want, because it ain't a matter of altering the facts. Either you saying they were misguided and you right, because that's the bottom line. The previous scholars in every generation around the world, the majority of Islamic scholars were misguided. They didn't know about Allah until your people came. That's the claim. Now it's up to the person if they're going to accept that or not. After weighing the facts, after weighing what the ulama said, because what the disadvantage you have is that they didn't give you the books of the scholars. So you don't know. You just know what they're telling you. They're telling you don't blind follow. We follow Quran and Sunnah, and you blind following them. Think about that. Don't blind follow the Imams. We just read Quran and Sunnah. Well, who's interpreting the Quran and Sunnah for you? Them. So don't blind follow the Imams who are experts. Blind follow us who are not experts. I'm blind following any way you put it. Because if I'm reading the Quran and the Sunnah and you're interpreting it for me, then I'm blind following you. Or if I'm following the great Imams of this nation, Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi, Ahmed, and all those who follow them, and I'm blind following them, but they're experts. So if I'm going to take the chance, I'm blind following anyway, because I don't have the tools to deduce and interpret the Quran and Sunnah on my own. Why am I blind follow someone who's not an expert? I mean, just intellectually, would anyone do that in anything? No one would do that. No one who uses their brain would do that. But that's what they're telling you. Because you tell me, as soon as we tell you what the scholars say, oh, they were Ash'aris and they were misguided. But all of them were Ash'aris and misguided. The greatest ones, and you can't do nothing without their books. That just don't add up. But alhamdulillah, maybe I'm not that smart. And I'm not. So maybe we just got to keep investigating. It just doesn't make sense. But I'm going to keep showing you. And some people, they don't need a lot of proofs. Some people can see this stuff clearly. What I've covered is sufficient for them. And then they can move on and go learn from the scholars of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. But some of us, it's going to take a lot of making things clear. And I'm patient. I got to I die. Wa'bud rabbaka hatta ya'tika al-yaqeen. Worship your Lord till death comes to you. All right, let me take a few questions quickly. I'm 10 minutes past time. Please forgive me. But I'm getting old. I don't see the clock well. Allah. Ta'wil, does ta'wil count as explaining? Ta'wil is explaining, but now there are different types of ta'wil, and remind me later. I'm not going to do it right this moment, but ta'wil is of different types, and there is a reason why the Salaf, among the Salaf, were those who made ta'wil, and I'm going to show you that as well. And that reason is whenever they face someone who was perverting the attributes of Allah, they gave ta'wil, which is a figurative interpretation, and there's rules to that. It's not just any kind of way. They can explain to you the rules as a refutation of those, not a confirmation of the exact intent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or his messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But we'll go into that. Just hold that question, and probably not tomorrow, maybe the next day, I can go into this issue of ta'wil, because I need to explain a couple of things first before that. Does this rule apply to the attributes of Rahman and Rahim? Here's what I mean by don't translate. What I mean by don't translate is when you're translating and you're giving a literal meaning, you must take into consideration meanings that befit Allah and meanings that do not befit Allah in the language that you're translating to, right? So this needs to be taken into consideration. So whenever you explain outside the Arabic language, right, you need to have certain things, qualifications you need to be a translator. I'm talking about for Islamic stuff, especially Aqidah. You need certain things. And I'm not qualified to do that. So let me make a disclaimer first. I'm not qualified. That's why you don't see me translating stuff that much. I just translate meanings. I'm not a translator. It's very difficult. Why? Let's just take Aqidah, for instance. And first, you got to be very good in the Arabic language. Very good in the English language. If we're talking about English is the language you're translating to, or any language, but let's say English. So you got to be real good in the Arabic language, real good in the English language. So you got to know the words in Arabic, the many meanings of those words in Arabic, the meanings in English of the word you're translating to, the many meanings of that word in English. And on top of that, you got to be skilled in the science of Aqidah. That means you need to know the meanings in the Arabic language of the words that relate to Aqidah and the technical meaning of those words in the science when you translate. All three of those things got to be combined to translate. And trust me, most times we don't have those qualifications. That doesn't mean we don't do anything, but it's a difficult task. It's not easy. I remember, I'll give you just brief, this is a long, maybe I'll come back and tell you the story. But we worked on a book, me and one of my teachers and another person. And it was a book on Sirah. And we had three of us working on this book, the sheikh explaining, we checking the translations, and someone who was better in English making sure the wording is right, right? And most of the mistakes that we found in translations were not the words, were the meaning of the words in the science that they were talking about. The technical meaning of the words, the translator, original translator, didn't understand the technical terminology, and he translated it literally, or she translated it literally, and it messed up the whole meaning of what the author was originally saying. And it was only related because the person wasn't skilled in the technical science that they were talking about. They were just literally translating. And when you literally translated, you lost meaning. That happens. So there is a challenge there. So when someone translates, don't jump on their back. That's not an easy job. I mean, I'm not saying if they're wrong, accept they're wrong, but realize that's a hard job translating. It's not easy if you want to be accurate. Now, go ahead. So you can translate, but you should translate for meanings. And then you got to know which is the proper meaning to that befits Allah and what meaning is not befitting of Allah. And that's the challenge. Other questions? Which of his books should begin with? I don't understand the question. Maybe you got to clarify your question. I don't understand what you mean by which books we should begin with. Maybe you were talking about something I said earlier, and I don't know what you're talking about. Allah, I think we're done. Shaykh al-Islam is a title of a great scholar. Abdul Wahab, let's fix that. I don't think you're talking about Abdul Wahab. That's the father. I think you're talking about Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahab. Was he Shaykh al-Islam? Absolutely not. Do his followers call him Shaykh al-Islam? Yes. But if you put it to the scale, of course, he was not Shaykh al-Islam. Shaykh al-Islam is usually reserved for a great scholar. But get names right, please. Abdul Wahab was his father. Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahab is who you're talking about. Am I done? I think so, right? We're just looking for questions, so just be patient. We're almost done. Please, everyone, because there are new people, make the intention to spread beneficial knowledge, to teach someone, and press the share button. Make the intention first, and then press the share button, so you get the reward. Everyone who learns, that will go in your scale of good deeds. So make the intention. No, what we're talking about, these are not, some of them could be from Israeliyat, but not what we're talking about. These are found in Bukhari and Muslim, is just how people understand them, not the narration. The narration is sahih, some of them, what we talked about, but the way they're being understood is wrong. Can you share the relationship of Qabr al-Ahad and Mutawatir hadiths as it relates to Aqidah? Some scholars, they said if a hadith, so I got to translate what that means. Qabr al-Ahad is those hadith which only have one chain of narration, right? And they're singular, right? And there are different types of Ahad hadith. And Mutawatir is hadiths that are whole groups of scholars from whole groups of scholars that is impossible that they can conspire to commit a lie. So the Mutawatir hadith is the highest level when you're talking about ranks of hadith in terms of numerous chains of transmission. And so some scholars, they didn't accept singular hadith in the issues of Aqidah. They said when we wanted to make a proof for Aqidah that the hadith should be mutawatir or mashhur, which are multiple chains of narration. And this relates to the science of hadith, which is a little bit more detailed. And I don't want us to lose here, but to answer your question, so the relationship is between some scholars. Some scholars, they did accept a singular hadith, but a lot of the scholars, they said that when they wanted a proof for Aqidah, that the hadith should be mutawatir or mashhur. But that is not every single scholar said that. That is too detailed. I'm not going to talk about that. What is Ash'ari's view on Allah's essence and attributes? I'm not going to talk about that. Is way too detailed. Way too much details for beginners. We won't discuss that. And I don't, when I say that, I'm not, I told you, keep in mind, brothers and sisters, I don't do microwave stuff. Why? Just for you to go argue. I'm not saying that's your intention. I'm not going to just give you stuff to go argue and you don't know what you're talking about. I want to make sure you have a firm foundation first so that you understand issues. Then when you talk about details, you don't mix. I listened to someone the other day, and they may have a good intention, but they was mixing Aqidah and fiqh and qawaid, usul al-fiqh, and I was like, what are you talking about? It was all over the place because they got a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and they just mixing it all up. It was a mess. I was like, slow down. Learn one thing well. But we got to be careful of that. We're going to talk about tafweed later, inshallah, when we talk about negating al-kayfiyya, inshallah. I am Shafi'i. I have too many books of the Shafi'i fiqh school. I've raised as a Shafi'i. So we have many books. On our website, we have books in Shafi'i fiqh. If you go to mmacbooks.com, you'll see books in the Shafi'i school. Common people, I don't recommend you study the books of Ibn Taymiyyah. Absolutely not. Someone who is learned and learned the foundations of Aqidah first, and they were trying to explain the issues that need to be corrected from Ibn Taymiyyah, and they already know sound Aqidah in the beginning, then that person may do it. But for a beginner who doesn't know the difference between what is correct belief and incorrect belief, absolutely you should not read the books of Ibn Taymiyyah. Did we look at the way that after attributing body parts, saying bila kayf while bila ma'na isn't the same as, we didn't get to that yet. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. So if you bring that, put that question back. If you remind me of this tomorrow, I'm going to talk about this tomorrow. That is my intention, inshallah, tomorrow morning. But make sure you remind me if I forget. I mean, because I want to talk about that. That's it. I want to share something quickly. I want you to distinguish between unlearned people that claim something and scholars of people who claim something. Because we can't be unfair. Ibn Taymiyyah, he didn't say explicitly, from what I know, that Allah has a body. He never said that. What he did say, from what I know, and it's mentioned in some of his books, right, that we don't say Allah is a body or he's not a body because it wasn't related in the text. That's what he says. Now, what that necessitates is another story. But to say that he said in his words that Allah is a body, I've never seen that in his books. Now, if someone's seen it, show me. And that doesn't mean I'm defending Ibn Taymiyyah, but I'm not going to lie on no one either, right? So you won't find a real Salafi who studied the Salafi books. He's going to say Allah is a body. He shouldn't say that. I'm not saying some unlearned person is not going to say that. He may. But a one who studied will not say that Allah is a body because they don't have a proof for it. So they won't say that. But likewise, they won't say that Allah is not a body. And that's another discussion. But let's not put words in people's mouths. That's not befitting either. So we don't lie on people, right? We don't fabricate about people. If they said it, they said it. If they didn't say it, they didn't say it, right? That doesn't make what they said right. It just means don't say someone said something they didn't say because you wouldn't want no one to do that to you. And it's not permissible anyway. That's not how you treat people, to fabricate. Even if what they said entails something, say he said this, and with this may entail this. But don't say he said that. He didn't say that. And don't attribute what some layman says who may not understand the issue to the scholars of their learned scholars, because they may not say the same thing. And that person may just totally misunderstand. It's possible. So we got to have some balance here too, right? Because we disagree with someone, don't mean we can fabricate on them. That's not permissible. That's haram. Just because you disagree with somebody doesn't give you the license to fabricate things about them. And if you make a mistake, you make a mistake, and we can correct it. I'm sorry, I'm way over time. Tomorrow night, we continue the Black Imams Roundtable on family development and youth empowerment with Imam Luqman Ahmed, Imam Fahim Lee, and Imam Naeem Abdullah, inshallah. So tune in tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. Set your schedules. Barakallahu fikum wa jazakumullahu khaira. You got 30 minutes. No, you got 30 minutes left. You better get to Mr. Charlie's. Oh, you might be off. Might got an extended holiday. Barakallahu fikum wa sallallahu alayhi wa Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Please, I remind you again to share the video. We're trying to get people out of darkness, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.